Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got quite a stack of sources today, all provided by you, our listener. And we're diving into a topic that feels, well, both massively hyped and maybe a bit confusing: the metaverse.
Oh, definitely. The buzz is incredible, isn't it? But as these sources really highlight, there's just as much confusion, maybe even skepticism floating around.
Absolutely. I mean, looking through this pile, we've got articles trying to pin down definitions, company reports on what they're actually building, and yeah, a lot of pretty strong opinions from online communities.
Right, so our goal today, using just what's in this stack you sent, is to try and unpack it. What do these sources say the metaverse is? Where did the term even come from?
What's happening now? Who's involved?
Exactly, and maybe the big one. Why all the pushback? Why the skepticism we're seeing reflected here?
Okay, let's dig in. So first things first, this word, metaverse. Where did it actually originate? The sources point somewhere specific, yeah.
They do. It actually goes way back, 1992. Sci-fi author Neil Stephenson in his book Snow Crash.
Snow crash, right?
And it literally breaks down to meta, meaning beyond, and universe. So beyond the universe.
Beyond the universe. Okay. That's quite a starting point. And the core idea then from Stevenson and how these sources see it today.
Well, the central theme across the sources seems to be shared. Persistent virtual worlds. Places where people interact, not just looking at screens, but sort of inside these spaces using avatars.
Okay, so virtual spaces.
Yeah, and you can do stuff there. Buy and sell digital things like virtual land, buildings, avatar names, attend events, just hang out digitally. And often there's a crypto element tied to ownership.
Right, right. But the sources jump on this pretty quickly. Defining it is really tricky, isn't it? Everyone seems to have their own angle.
Totally. And it often gets simplified, like you said earlier. People
Yeah.
immediately jump to virtual reality, putting on a headset.
But it's more than that.
Much more, according to these sources, particularly one citing Matthew Ball, the venture capitalist. He really emphasizes it's broader. He calls it the ultimate goal for a lot of tech companies.
And Ball actually gives a list of what it's not, which seems pretty useful for clarity.
It really does help frame it. According to the source quoting him, Ball says the metaverse is not just a virtual world or only a video game. It's not Second Life, even though people make that comparison all the time.
Okay.
It's not something you just log into like a website. And it's more than just user-generated content on its own.
So if it's none of those things, what does Ball positively define it as? What's his bigger picture view in these sources?
He talks about it being a fully persistent, synchronous kind of synthesis, merging the digital and the physical world.
Persistent and synchronous,
Yeah.
meaning always on and happening in real time for everyone.
Exactly. The idea is this single, continuous reality, almost, a starting point where you can access all sorts of experiences, meet needs, maybe interact with everyone you know. He used a kind of fun metaphor mentioned here, the nightmare before Christmas.
Huh. How does that fit?
Like how the characters can seamlessly move between different holiday worlds, right?
Yeah.
Ball suggests the metaverse could be like that, a unified access point to many different kinds of digital experiences.
That's a massive idea, like a layer over reality, not just a place you go. How does that stack up against, say, Mark Zuckerberg's vision as the source is presented?
Zuckerberg's description, based on these sources, sounds more like an embodied internet. The focus seems to be on digital avatars meeting up in virtual spaces, often mimicking real-world places, like virtual office meetings.
He compared it to the Matrix, but nicer, right?
Yeah, that comparison is mentioned. But interestingly, people like Ball and others cited here seem to feel that view is a bit narrow, too focused on VR maybe, and missing those key aspects of persistence and, that broad synthesis across everything.
So one view is this always-on digital layer. The other is more like distinct VR destinations. Is that the tension?
That seems to be a core tension, yeah. But wait, there's another angle in the sources, too. Some frame the metaverse less as a place and more as a protocol.
A protocol. Like how the internet itself works on protocol.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like TCP/IP for the internet, but for 3D stuff. The idea is a set of open standards for interaction in persistent 3D spaces.
Open standards, meaning not owned by one company.
That's the goal, ideally. The sources mention groups like the Metaverse Standards Org trying to build this out. And look who's involved. Sony, Amazon, Google, Intel, NVIDIA, and Meta too.
Interesting. So even Meta is involved in the open standards discussion,
Apparently so, according to this source. The aim is an open foundation, not just closed-off platforms.
which ties into Web 3.0, doesn't it? That connection comes up.
Yeah, it's definitely presented as part of that whole Web 3.0 evolution.
Yeah.
Moving from Web 1, which was mostly read-only,
Static websites, basically.
to Web 2, read-write like social media where we create content, and now Web 3 adding execute contracts and crucially own. The digital ownership piece is key.
Digital ownership and decentralization.
So yeah, sci-fi origins, these grand visions, maybe an open protocol, Web 3 links. It's a lot. No wonder some sources just throw up their hands and say nobody knows what it is.
Or call it a wet fever dream or a solution waiting for a problem. Those quotes are in here too.
Exactly. That skepticism is loud and clear in the material you sent. The definition is very much up for grabs.
Okay, so if it's this complex idea, potentially layering over reality or being this vast network, it must need a ton of tech working together. What do the sources say are the key ingredients?
Oh yeah, it's a whole ecosystem. The lists include, well, the obvious ones, VR, augmented reality, AR,
Right.
and you've got 3D avatars, maybe even holographic ones down the line.
Yeah.
TV communication, of course. But also the plumbing ultra-fast broadband is crucial. Huge cloud computing platforms, AI is mentioned, and serious processing power, like GPUs. NVIDIA gets name-checked a lot there.
And that other piece that keeps popping up, crypto and NFTs, how do the sources really explain that connection? Because it seems central to some visions, but maybe not all.
It's presented as pretty fundamental, especially for that decentralized open vision. The idea is that blockchain tech gives you a reliable way to prove you own digital stuff in these virtual worlds.
Verifiable ownership.
Exactly. It's tied to your private keys in what's called a non-custodial wallet. That wallet becomes your identity, your inventory, your proof you own that virtual land or that cool avatar outfit.
So it's different from owning an item in a regular video game where the company really still controls it.
That's the core argument presented here. With blockchain and NFTs, the sources suggest you truly own the asset. You can trade gaming items as NFTs. You might use specific Metaverse coins, Sand and Mana are mentioned, for transactions within these platforms.
And you'd buy those with other crypto like Ether or stablecoins.
Typically, yeah, ETH or USDC are mentioned. And buying virtual land, that's a big use case highlighted, often happens via NFTs. There's even a Metaverse index, MVI, mentioned for tracking various tokens in this space.
Okay, so the tech stack involves VRR, cloud, AI, GPUs. And for many, blockchain and crypto are key for ownership and economy. Can we actually do any of this today? Do the sources point to real examples?
Yes, definitely. While that huge, fully integrated vision might still be a ways off, pieces of it are live. The sources name specific platforms you can try out.
Like what? Where can someone actually jump in?
Decentraland is a big one, mentioned frequently. You make an avatar, you can walk around, explore, and yeah, buy virtual land as an NFT.
Wow.
Then you can build on it. You generally need a wallet like MetaMask to really participate.
Okay.
Then there's the sandbox. That one seems more focused on users creating their own stuff, building worlds, making games, and potentially commercializing them.
The sandbox has pulled in some big brands too, hasn't it?
It has. Adidas is mentioned, buying land for their Adiverse, collaborations with NFT projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club. It uses the sand token for its economy. CryptoVoxels is another one mentioned, focused on virtual land, often sold on NFT marketplaces like OpenSea.
So these are like individual proto-metaverses almost, not one connected thing yet.
Pretty much. There are places where these concepts are being actively built and used. But the sources also point to other things we might call metaverse-like experiences, even if they don't fit the strictest definition.
What else falls into that category?
Think big gaming platforms. Fortnite hosting huge concerts with artists like Ariana Grande, Travis Scott, Roblox doing events with Gucci or the NFL. Those are shared virtual experiences at massive scale.
Right, millions of people attending virtually.
Exactly. And then on the work side, tools like Microsoft Teams exploring more immersive features, or Meta's Horizon Workrooms trying to make remote meetings feel more present.
It seems like it touches a lot of different areas then. The sources break it down.
They do. Gaming is clearly a huge driver. Concepts like games as platforms, social gaming, and this play-to-earn idea.
Play to earn, earning actual crypto or NFTs just by playing.
That's the model presented. Games like Axie Infinity, Gods Unchained, Splinterlands are given as examples where players can earn tradable assets. The sources also talk about the potential for NFTs to let you take assets between different games, though that seems more future-facing.
Interesting. What other areas besides gaming?
Entertainment, definitely.
Yeah.
Attending virtual concerts, interacting with AI performers. The Sensorium Galaxy project with artists like David Guetta is cited. Real estate is another big one, mentioned people investing in virtual land, NFTs, hoping it appreciates. Plots and Sandbox, Decentraland, CryptoVoxels.
Buying virtual land as an investment. Wow.
Yeah. And then, like we touched on, corporate use cases, those immersive remote work platforms trying to improve collaboration.
Okay, so lots of activity, lots of potential areas. Who are the big players identified in the sources that are really pushing this forward or trying to shape it?
Well, several heavy hitters are named. Meta, Facebook is unavoidable, really. Huge focus on VR hardware with Oculus and building social platforms like Horizon Worlds, aiming for that embodied internet feel, connecting people in virtual spaces.
They're all in on their vision, it seems. What about NVIDIA?
NVIDIA is positioned as providing the crucial underlying tech. Their Omniverse platform for virtual collaboration and simulation is mentioned. Plus, their GPUs are seen as essential for powering increasingly complex virtual worlds.
And Microsoft. What's their approach, according to these sources?
Microsoft seems broader. They've got gaming with Minecraft and Flight Simulator, which have metaverse-like aspects. They have creator tools. They're involved in decentralized identity ideas, hardware like HoloLens and Xbox. Plus, their Azure cloud platform providing infrastructure. It looks more diversified.
And we shouldn't forget the platforms that started decentralized, right?
Absolutely not. The sources bring up Sandbox and Decentraland again here,
Hmm.
representing that other side, the more open, blockchain-based, community-driven approach. So it's a real mix of big tech and these newer Web3 native players.
Which leads us neatly into, well, the skepticism. That Reddit source especially dives into why people seem wary or just plain uninterested.
Yeah.
What are the main criticisms coming through in this material?
Yeah, that thread is quite revealing. A huge point, maybe the biggest, is just the lack of clarity we talked about. Nobody knows what it is. That sentiment comes up again and again. It feels like a buzzword without substance to many.
And the feeling that it's just not needed, like tech for tech's sake.
Exactly. A solution looking for a problem is a common refrain in these critiques. People are asking, what does this really add that I can't already do with my phone, my laptop, Zoom calls, online banking? Why, the headset?
There also seems to be a lot of negativity directed specifically at Meta.
Oh, absolutely. That's a major theme. Deep distrust stemming from Facebook's history with data privacy, concerns about them trying to control everything, creating a walled garden.
A bad reputation with developers is mentioned too.
Yes, and a general feeling expressed in these sources that Meta's push is just a transparent attempt to sell us stuff or monetize every single interaction within their version of the metaverse.
And their actual product, Horizon Worlds, doesn't escape criticism either.
Slight pause. No, it really doesn't. The descriptions cited are harsh. Visually unappealing, looks like a turd, is actually quoted. Lacking features, simplistic compared to existing platforms like VR chat, a corporate abomination. The feedback seems pretty brutal.
Wow, okay. Beyond Meta, what about the hardware itself? Is that a barrier?
The huge one, according to the skeptics here. VR headsets get called clunky, heavy. A toaster on your face is one description. Uncomfortable for long periods, expensive, limited by batteries or annoying cords. Plus, motion sickness is a real issue for some. They just don't feel mainstream ready or accessible yet.
And this isn't the first attempt at something like this, is it? People are drawing parallels.
Definitely. Comparisons to Second Life are constant. But also, VRML from the 90s, PlayStation Home. Critics see it as basically a rehash of old ideas that didn't take off, potentially repeating the same mistakes.
Are there deeper fears about the future woven into this skepticism?
Yes. Some sources touch on dystopian concerns, fears of people becoming disconnected from actual reality, spending all their time plugged in, worries about monopolies controlling these virtual spaces, and just overwhelming commercialization and advertising.
And even the crypto part, the NFTs, that's not universally seen as a positive.
Not at all. For some critics cited here, it just screams scam or bubble. They see unregulated markets, pointless speculation, or argue that we already have ways to manage digital ownership without needing blockchain complexity.
So when you boil it all down, a lot of the pushback seems to be people just don't see the point yet. The benefit isn't clear compared to existing tools.
That really seems to be a core message from the critical perspectives in these sources. The value proposition just isn't compelling enough for many right now, and the tech feels immature or unnecessary.
So where does that leave us? Looking ahead, based purely on this set of sources, the future feels pretty uncertain.
Highly uncertain, yeah. But the sources do acknowledge that if this whole concept matures and integrates, the potential scale is viewed as enormous.
And that battle, we talked about the big tech centralized visions versus the open decentralized ones.
That's presented as a key ongoing struggle. Will it be Meta's world or Microsoft's? Or will something more like the open internet protocols emerge, built on blockchain and community effort? That seems to be a fundamental question shaping its development.
Is there a sense that better technology might eventually win people over? Lighter glasses, maybe?
There's a hint of that. The sources suggest future tech may be comfortable AR glasses that blend digital info onto the real world seamlessly, could overcome today's clunkiness and make it feel more natural, more integrated into daily life, and less like a separate destination.
So perhaps less of a sudden revolution, more of a slow burn, a gradual evolution.
That seems likely, based on this material. It'll probably require ongoing work on standards, better tools, smoother experiences, cheaper and better hardware. It's a long road.
And for someone listening, trying to navigate all this noise and conflicting information, what's the advice from the sources on how to best understand it?
Several sources basically say, the best way is to try it yourself. Dip your toes in. They suggest experimenting with platforms like Decentraland or the Sandbox, but they also note you'll probably need to get a crypto wallet set up to really engage with the ownership and economic aspects.
Right. So there we have it. We've gone through the sources you provided, trying to piece together this really complex picture of the metaverse.
Yeah, we've grappled with all those different definitions, looked at the tech stack, including that really significant, sometimes controversial role of crypto and NFTs, according to these readings. We've seen the current examples, the big players, and, importantly, the many reasons people are skeptical or critical.
It's definitely not straightforward. No single definition, no clear path forward. That tension between the open, decentralized dream and the concerns about corporate control, between the massive hype and the, frankly, clunky reality for many users today, it's palpable.
Leaves you with a lot to think about, doesn't it?
It really does. Which brings us to a final question for you, our listener, to chew on, based only on the ideas and arguments presented in the sources we discussed today. Given this intense debate, the competing visions, the technological hurdles, and the significant skepticism we've heard about, what do you think is the most likely future path for this metaverse concept? Or perhaps, based on what's argued here, what might be the most desirable path?
A fascinating question to ponder. And thank you again for sending in the sources for this deep dive. Hopefully this discussion helped bring some structure to a very, very messy topic.